So here's the before. Just got finished changing out the shower valve. And as a temporary measure, I'm going to be fixing these cracks in the fiberglass shower pan. As you can see, it's got several cracks. That one there. This one, which was a repair from before that didn't last, from someone else. A new crack right there. And then this one, really, really bad. No support at all underneath it. It's completely given way. But I'm going to fix it. First thing we're going to do, drill holes. So here I'm going to drill holes into the shower floor at the beginning and end of each crack. Ideally, this will stop further cracking. Also, where there's a big divot where there's no support, I'll drill a hole to inject more foam underneath the pan. I'm drilling holes that match the size of the straw from the builder's foam that I'm using. There's quite a few here. And as you'll see, after doing this, I found an area that still moved after injecting with foam. So I drilled a couple more holes and squirted more down in there. They really should, when they install these pans, put them either on a mortar or sand, something that will give support, because what they tend to do when they make these is they put the fiberglass on a piece of wood, but only in areas around the outer edge and not across the middle, and they just expect the fiberglass is going to hold the weight. And over time, these get little fissure cracks, and they just get bigger and bigger as the shower ages. It's not about how much weight is on it per se, or say a traumatic event that caused it to happen. It's just its age, and it's really lacking in proper installation procedures. If this was properly supported, it would not have done this. But fortunately, with the advent of builder's foam, we can solve this problem without tearing it completely out. This is my first time attempting to do this, and I have worked with body fillers before. I've done plaster work. I've spread, there's the foam I'm using, Loctite. That version of it is extra firm, so you wouldn't use this around doors and windows because it would expand out and pop your jambs crooked, and you don't want that. You would use window and door version of the foam, which doesn't expand as much. This will support a person easily. So I'm just injecting the straw down through the hole as far as it'll go, and then I'm kind of angling it over towards the others, and when I see the foam come squirting out the other holes, I know I'm making the progress I need. Because that crack was so large and the shower was still being used, there was quite a bit of water down there. and some of it was squirting up through the cracks as I injected the foam. Fortunately, the water does not mix with the foam, so that's not an issue. Once the leak is stopped, the water will dry up. In this case, there is a access to the underneath area of that shower in the garage that I have open, so it can ventilate. This has been leaking for quite a while. I didn't ever see any sign of damage, probably because that area does get ventilation. But I'm sure it's going to be a while before all that moisture um, dries up. There you can see the foam has squirted out the holes. Sorry you can't see through me. It's just very tight quarters in a bathroom like this. Very difficult to get camera in a good position where I'm not blocking the way. Quite a while. I'm just wiping the excess off. We're going to be sanding it anyway, but then I don't have to clean off so much of that. Now that's going to do some major support in those weak areas, and then we'll hit it with fiberglass mesh and fiberglass resin. That will harden that up. Then we'll be applying some Bondo products to make the finish nicer. Smooth it out. Here I'm just going to clean off the bits and pieces of hardened builder's foam. Now I'm taking some 60 grit sandpaper and I'm taking down the builder's foam as well as some of the gel coat and filler material that is around those cracks to try and get them more level with each other. The foam sands very easily. The old coatings on fiberglass with that grit does pretty quick job. If you go finer than that at this stage, it takes a little too long and it builds up on the sandpaper, so it helps to keep it changed out so it doesn't take as much time. Here I've stopped the sanding because I realized I need to remove the drain flange or grid. It's I'm not going to coat it, and I want to be able to get the finish sanded right up to the edge. And as I started removing it, I realized this thing has become brittle to where it's starting to crack just trying to get it out of there. So it's time to replace it anyway, and I did find a nice new stainless steel snap-in cover for that by Odie. So that'll make it look even better after I'm all done. Had a little problem getting that out at first. It's plastic, and I don't it doesn't appear they're making the plastic ones anymore. They must have found that they get defective over time. So at least at Home Depot, they only carried metal ones. And all the new shower drain receptors all came with the metal one. So I'm continuing on with the smoothing out around the cracks. I'm going to pick up the pace here, sanding around the balance of the shower pan, and then I'm hand sanding around the drain. I couldn't get that schmutz off around the outer edge with cleaner. It took sandpaper to get it off. It must have been hard water deposits or something. And then I continued on with the sander. That vacuum may be noisy, but boy, it keeps the dust down. I didn't have any problems with dust. I could probably have done it without wearing a mask in there. And some of it I did, but the mask does a good job. Here's the resin I'll be using from 3M. It's just a patch kit that came with a bit of fiberglass matting and the resin, and came with a little stir stick. Now I'm preparing the mat to fit the space. I first cut it to fit and then realized I saw another crack right about where the resin bottle is that I didn't see before, so I had to add another patch piece on it afterwards. I'm using acetone to wipe the areas where I'm going to apply the resin at this point, just to get all the fine dust off of the areas where the cracks are. Later I'll be cleaning the whole floor before coating it. But acetone is the solvent for these products, including the gel coat that I'll be using, although they do recommend another solvent for thinning it when you're spraying, but it's just a shower floor. I'm not concerned about so much beauty, particularly because this is an old shower. I plan to tear it out later. We shall see. If this ends up being a really a good patch where I don't see any crack develop, then I may change my thoughts on that. But for now, my plan is still to tear this thing out completely. So at this point, I realized it was time to get my new vapor mask fitted, and I'm working on opening the package and pulling it out, and I'm finding that the connector that's supposed to hold the strap around the back of your neck, like, it doesn't seem like it's set up to clip on right. So I decide, all right, I discovered that it was broken, brand new out of the package. The quick connect had snapped off in the package. So I'm just slipping, I cut a fine point onto the elastic and I'm pushing it through the connector that wasn't designed for that on the mask itself. I'm just going to tie a knot. It works. I mean, this was a Harbor Freight $18 respirator. You know, the 3M one is, I don't know now, it's probably between 30 and 60 bucks. I've had one for years, but I haven't used it in quite a while. And apparently they don't use the same cartridges anymore. It has round filter elements that screw on for replacement, and 3M doesn't appear to make those anymore. So I discovered the parts of the old mask was cracking, and I couldn't reuse it, even though I had a brand new set of replacement filters that I'd had packed away for a few years. So I just put that on my list as something I had to buy, because you do not want to be doing this work without a respirator. Those fumes are not good for your brain and for the rest of your body either. And they're very intense, and it's a huge difference there. See, I just put a thumbs up because I got it working. So it does work very well. You don't hardly notice any fumes when you've got the mask on, but boy, when you slip it off and take a whiff, oh man. And it will fill the house. I've got the window open in this bathroom. I've got the exhaust fan going, and it still permeated the house. I have whole house fans, so I turned that on too. And I think without that, it would have been a worse scenario. So I am now looking at the directions on there to see how much of the hardener they want on there, and it's for every ounce of the resin, you're supposed to put 10 drops of the MEK activator. So I'm going to do 4 ounces in this first portion, because you got to really be careful. You mix too much and it'll set up on you before you can get it all down, and it's too expensive to waste. So I'm measuring it out to 4 ounces in there, and then I'll be adding 40 drops of the hardener. The hardener in this case is methyl ethyl ketones. It's a solvent that I used to be able to buy at Home Depot. In fact, I did buy it at Home Depot. You can't get it in California anymore, except for in small amounts like in this kit. But MEK, it's an amazing solvent. It'll dissolve just about anything. Acetone isn't nearly as a solvent as the MEK, but I believe the MEK could absorb through the skin, and you had to be very careful how you handled it. So I can see why they don't want consumers having access to it anymore. I do miss it though. Now I'm looking at the hardener, which has the MEK in it, the little bottle, and it has a plug on it. And I figured it would come with a little small hole, and you just squeeze it, and it would, like an eyedropper, generate drips. Well, it doesn't have it, and if you just cut across the top, you wouldn't be able to do drops. So I'm taking it down to the garage and get my drill and a drill bit, and I drilled a small hole in the end of it. Okay, I've got the hole drilled. Nice little hole. And I'm putting in the 40 drops. Now I'm pouring the resin along the cracks, kind of across the middle area, and I'll spread it with a disposable brush. Sorry about my shoulder. I don't have a monitor, so I can't see what the camera is seeing. And it's, like I said, it's just tight quarters. Guess I should have moved the camera a little further down to the side, but it's already against the door. So I'm just spreading it evenly beyond the crack there. You can see that. And then I'll be placing the fiberglass matting on top of that. Then I will pour more of the resin across the middle of that and work from the middle out. Getting that brushed out all the way around the perimeter, starting from the middle and working your way out, because the mesh does move around and it can easily get bunched up, and you don't want that. You want it as smooth as possible. Also, you'll find you get stray strands that that kind of just come loose, and I would pick them up as I see them with the edge of the brush and kind of pick them up and dispose of them. So there I'm pouring the rest of that mix of the resin over the fiberglass mesh and getting that brushed out, smoothing it out beyond the fiberglass. And then after that stage, then you'll sand that down to get it closer to being smooth, and that's when you start applying the Bondo glass, which has small fibers of fiberglass mix in it. Makes it much stronger. It helps to not only to fill voids, but it just helps the overall strength of your fiberglass repair. And was my experience that it cures a lot faster than the resin does. The resin is an epoxy, and the Bondo products is a polyester, much like the gel coat is. I'm using now every little bit left. That edge needed just a little bit more. I was actually fortunate that the temperature in there was fairly cool with the window open. This is winter, so it's probably 58 or something outside. That slows down the curing of it, so it gave me more open time to work it. In the summer, it would probably be very difficult to get it spread in time, especially if you mix up too much. And whatever you mix up, you've got to use, or else you lose it, and everything else you've got it touching, so it all hardens. So there you can see pretty well spread, and the next step will be to mix the remainder of the resin for the final crack that you see in the upper corner. There's something like 3.2 ounces remaining in the bottle. So times 10, that would be 30.2 drops. I think I put 34 in there, and that corner that I patched up at the top of the screen, it did cure faster than the rest, but not so much that I couldn't get it down. It probably took a couple hours before I felt like I could sand it. And I also I put the door on, back on the bathroom hinges, and put in a space heater to warm it up in there because I didn't want it to take all day. Temperature does make a big difference besides the amount of hardener that you put in. So it's there. I'm adding the hardener now, and then I'm going to stir it real good with the stir stick, and then it's just a matter of pouring it on your spot and applying the mesh. Here you can see I've got the mesh on the upper crack and the resin spread around. And now I'm just smoothing out a little bit of that edge on the previous crack and picking up. And that's it until it hardens. So see you back when that's done. Now that the resin has hardened, I'm again sanding with the 60 grit sandpaper. That's just what I had. They're saying use 80 grit, but 60 with an orbital is fine. That resin is hard, and I think 80 was fine to take care of this. So I'm just feathering the edges now and taking down any high spots, and of course roughing it up so that the Bondo glass will stick. So here's the Bondo product I'm using. It's now called Short Strand Filler. It used to be just called Bondo Glass, but they've changed names on a couple of their products. So I'm opening the can, pulling out the hardener tube, and getting the stick to scoop it out and place it on the shower floor. And I'm just mixing it on the shower floor since I'm spreading it on anyway. So I'm going to be spreading it out with the hardener, mixing it on the shower floor with a piece of cardboard. Yeah, this stuff is messy, and you get it on you at this stage. You can get it off with solvent, but it just goes all over the place, and this won't harden without the hardener in it, so it just stays gooey and messy. So I'm trying to be careful not to get it on me. So now I'll put the hardener on there. I'll put a stripe of it down the middle. Oh yeah, didn't have my respirator on yet, and it's starting to smell. you want to mix it thoroughly. So my initial mixing is with the stir stick. But it's real important that you fold the material with the scraper. So you draw it across, scrape it up, draw it across again. Almost like kneading dough, but with the scraper. All uniform. You don't want any parts of the hardener not getting mixed. Once you've got it appropriately mixed, then just start spreading it out. Doesn't need to be real thick. It's reinforced with the fiberglass pieces. This just helps, makes it stronger, and it smooths out your patch. Because the resin and the matting, it's not perfect. And this fills all the differences in height and if any of the mesh were to poke through. But this, even though it didn't look like it, you couldn't tell from the video, but with the resin and fiberglass mat, it was pretty smooth and plenty thick. You just could not tell from the image of the camera. But so I've finished spreading that side, and now I'm just mixing this one up. I did the small one first because I didn't want the spread of the one in front of me to get on me. So I just went ahead and mixed the rear one first and spread it. Now I'm getting this one, which had quite a bit more filler because it's a lot larger area to patch. I know, a nice picture of the back of my head. You can see I'm getting it spread. Moving it around, feathering the edges, drawing it out. Trying to not leave too thick or too thin in the areas, as smooth as possible. But again, we're going to be going over this again with filler. It used to be called putty, but now they call it general or classic filler, something like that. I'll show that when I go to do it. But it's just creamy. It doesn't have any fiberglass mesh in it, so it fills any divots that you've got from this product. I'm just getting it evenly spread across the whole thing, and then let that set up and move on to the next stage. So I've got my utility knife with a brand new blade, cutting the perimeter of the drain flange. Sorry for my head. Got more shots in my head than anything else, I'm afraid. And peeling off the excess. Next is I have a laser level. It's a self-leveling laser, but that won't work for what I'm doing. I need it to mark evenly from side to side, whether it's level or not. What I'll be doing is just eye-sighting the level from point to point. Since it's a curving shower and I have to tilt it down to align with where the tape needs to go, I just basically put it on straight on towards each side predominantly, and that'll give me pretty much straight line. And I just connect the corners, and you'll see as I go around the shower and I adjust the laser, I've got shims because of the slope of the floor. I'm shimming it to get it to the right height and angle. I do have a leveling accessory that goes on the bottom of that, but again, it lifts it higher and it's already too high. I don't want to have to be measuring down. I want to be able to follow the laser line with my tape, and to get it as low as I'm going, I just have to put the laser right on the shower floor. Took me a while, but it came out really nice and straight all the way around. I didn't mention the reason I'm masking it off is I don't want to do the whole shower. Um, Eventually, the shower will get torn out completely. This is to get by for a while, and I'm actually going higher than I originally expected to. But when I found that crack to the left of the screen at where the bench meets the wall, I had to apply patching compound higher. And the gel coat that I'll be putting on is pure white. It will look quite different from the uh, aged white that the rest of the shower is. So I wanted to make a straight line at least, so that it just looks like the shower pan is brand new. So I carried that highest point all the way around the shower with the blue tape. And now you can see I readjusted the laser to be shooting straight on to see before I finished the final taping that the two ends were going to meet after going all the way around. Because obviously, if you've got some errors going around it, it could show greatly from one end to the other. But in this case, it ended up being just about right on. Unfortunately, it's not in the picture here, what I'm doing. Uh, but I'm just joining the final closure of tape. Here's the product I'm using, white gel coat, and this is the place I got it from. Unfortunately, the measuring cup in cc's for the um, second part, the catalyst, which is MEK, it was cracked in the package, so I'll just go by drops. Uh, Manufacturer recommends 10 drops of the MEK per 1 ounce of the gel coat. So I've got 12 ounces, I'm putting 120 drops approximately. I've got the heater running in the bathroom, which is making me sweat, but I definitely want it above 70 degrees so that it cures. It's wintertime again, so 50 degrees or lower outside. I think it is colder today. At night, it's been getting about freezing, but right now it's probably mid 50s. And I like to keep the house cool, so I've got the window open and all to let fumes out, and it's just too warm or too cold in there without the heat. So unfortunately, I've got to work in the heat, but it's worth it to make this cure properly. It could take a long, long time if it's too cool. And I really, I could add more MEK, but they only gave me a tiny little vial, 18 cc, no, 15 cc's for a whole quart. And after speaking to their rep, uh, he said that this time of year it'd be more like 2 drops per ounce. Um, and I told him I don't. There's not enough included in the kit to make it that concentrated. So we just have to make it work with what I've got. And I think by heating it up good in there, that'll be suffice. I got to give a heads up to Mark at Fiberglass Supply Depot. He was very helpful with my questions today when I called because I'd seen differing opinions on if I needed to use a primer over this uh, body filler. And he confirmed what I thought it might be, is that he said be better to not use a primer. I have a 2K primer, but he said don't prime it because um, the components are the same material that's in the gel coat as in the body filler. It's both components are polyester based, and they're catalyzed with similar as the similar material, the MEK, which is used to catalyze the fiberglass resin. However, that just happens to be the component that makes it activate. You don't want to try to stick gel coat directly over epoxy, but going over body filler, which is polyester, is okay. And it uses a different catalyst in the body filler, even though the main component is still a polyester. They just have different activation chemicals uh, that are in the mix. So fortunately, this is Bondo, my only choice locally. I was told that there's some other brands that are better for this, less grainy, more smooth when you sand, but that's okay. As long as the gel coat seals it, the gel coat goes on really thick and it'll fill little voids, and so it should come out fine. But I'm glad to hear that I don't need to use a primer because the primer is just another step. And I'm glad I asked Mark whether I should use any. He said absolutely not. Now I'm using a roller at this step because Mark told me that if you're going to spray it, it's less likely to fill all the voids that Bondo leaves behind. And I have to use it straight. He said do not use acetone with their product. It's just adding more solvent rather than adding to the component of the gel coat. There's a specific thinner that he said you can use that will make it spray out nice and smooth and glossy. But it's not available locally. And so he said I can use a 3 millimeter tip on my spray gun, and it will spray, but it will probably come out a little orange peeled looking. And I said that's perfect because I need the grippiness on the floor of the shower. So that's what I'm going to do. But he said if you're going to do that, I suggest that you roll first because you're pushing that material into all the voids with the roller, and rather than just sitting on top. So that's why I'm doing it this way. And I used 12 ounces. There's full 32 ounces in the container. So less than half I'm using. for this stage, and it was more than enough to roll out quite a thick layer with the roller. So because I had so much and I'd already sanded it all, it'll stick then. And I decided to just roll all of it. The only thing is this particular gel coat has paraffin wax in it. And what that does is it makes the finished surface not sticky when it's dry. Um, it floats to the top as it's curing, creating a seal so that the gel coat seals properly or cures properly. So it cuts off the air supply and lets it cure, because a cure is a chemical reaction, not a drying reaction. So this particular thinning agent that they have actually adds to the body of the gel coat. It doesn't add more volatile compounds to it. So I'm going to just finish rolling this out, get it as even as I can, leave a little stipple. And then with the wax in it, I'm going to have to sand it all to put another coat. So if I'm going to spray a final coat, I have to sand all this because the wax that comes to the top will prevent it from sticking, and then it would be a mess. So he says, yeah, sand that all down with 80 grit sandpaper to get that wax off the top. So that's what I plan on doing. We'll see what this looks like when it has cured, and I'll make up my mind then. I'm just smoothing it out. It's really hard to tell in the image, but it got real thick over near the shower dam, and so I'm kind of spreading it out, spreading it around. And as I was using the rest, or almost all the rest, in the cup, I realized I had more than enough to coat all of it and roll it up the edges up to the tape. So you see me go back and rolling the vertical surfaces with the excess, because it would have been too thick in some of those areas. So I'm putting a general light touch to the roller to give it a stipple, and I'm distributing the gel coat from where it's pooled up near the shower dam and spreading it around in other areas that can take more, for instance, on the vertical sides. And it ended up being just about right. I still had maybe an ounce or ounce and a half of the mixed gel coat, which of course I can't use because I catalyzed it. So it's always a guessing game with when you got to catalyze something, how much to use. And I just judged that I felt if it was paint and I was putting it really heavy paint, that I could use 10 to 12 ounces. And sure enough, I think it was about 10 ounces. So that's pretty much it. We'll go back to this after it has cured, and we'll see how that comes out. Not sure yet how long that's going to be, but what you'll see next is me checking on it and then determining if I'm going to spray. So this video is just over an hour, so I'm going to wrap this video up at this stage. I have decided I'm going to sand and spray it. It did harden down to a nice smooth finish. but I want to build the layer up more and try my hand at spraying. So I'm going to put that on another video. So I've got video of the cured floor and a still shot of the finished product. So once we get to that point, I will show you that on the screen. I will say the fumes from the gel coat it's definitely the strongest of all the processes. You definitely have to have a respirator and good ventilation. Also, you want to make sure the room you're applying the gel coat in is 70 degrees or above, preferably. Otherwise, it may never cure completely, and that would be a mess. I put in a space heater in the bathroom and closed the door, and I did leave the window that's in there open a crack, maybe 4 inches or so, just to keep ventilation going. But the heat definitely made the difference. It was sticky and tacky for the first hour, but sometime within the second hour, it turned and hardened. I noticed that the remainder that was in my cup was um, firm and hot. And that concludes this video. Thank you so much for coming to my channel to watch my video. If you like the video, please give a thumbs up or a comment, and we'll see you on the next one. I hope you learned something from this. Catch you next time.